Good afternoon, Chief here. I'm still going to talk about NTC. I only went to NTC twice in my military career. One time was with the 1st Infantry Division, and the second time was with the 24th. There was two incidences that I want to talk about today. It shows a little bit of a double standard. I think both of these happened the 2nd or the 1st. I can't remember, or they could have happened one apart, but they're on my mind, so I want to get them off and onto video today. The first incident, I was in the command tent, the TOC, the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center, as I explained last week. We were doing a hasty setup, I think it was, because we more or less drove up to this site and everybody started parking their 557s, which is a track vehicle, putting up their vestibules, which is the tent extension from the track vehicle, and I was inside helping to set up our table and the TA-312 telephone and everything like that. And there were a lot of officers in there. Seemed like all the units, like the engineers, the artillery, the infantry, the tank battalion, they all had their representatives in there, and they were doing a little huddle. And in walks this sergeant major, and this sergeant major walks up to another sergeant major and hands him a 9mm gun. So I bent in here to hear this conversation, and the sergeant major said, "Yeah, we were behind you in the convoy and we saw your 9mm fall out of your holster. So we picked it up, so here it is." And it's like, hey, thank you. And since they were both sergeant majors and high enough rank, nobody got their hands smacked, which is kind of right and wrong. Well, first off, any soldier knows that when you're in a field environment, even playtime like at NTC, National Training Center, you put a dummy cord to your weapon. You get some parachute line, paracord, whatever you want to call it, the lovely green stuff that's got, or the lovely green outer casing with the white cord on the inside for parachuting, for rappelling, for tying things together. I mean, we use it for a multiple of things. Everybody's always making key fobs and everything else out of it, and even putting a paracord on your glasses, so if they fall, at least they only fall so far. So the first sergeant major, the one that lost the weapon, was in the wrong by not putting a dummy cord on his 9mm. It's actually got a hole in the bottom of the receiver, or the main part of the gun. There's a hole down here to put paracord, a lanyard, even a lanyard with a hook. Why he didn't do that? Because had the doors off of his Humvee, I guess. So he probably hiked a leg up, and when he hiked the leg up, it changed the position of his holster, so it angled down, and his weapon fell out. So that's the bad part, is that he did not put a dummy cord. The good part is that at least it was one sergeant major handing it to another, because anybody that's been to a training scenario, when you lose a sensitive item such as a weapon, a NBC mask, a radio, or anything that is got some kind of intelligence on it, so to speak, or is a personal item that you need to use to be on the battlefield, like your weapon and your mask. Those are high value and highly sensitive, and items that you always got to have the serial number for, and to repeat in and nauseum to somebody every time you go to the field. So the good part of that is, since he didn't lose his weapon, because if he would have lost his weapon, we would have been out there double arm length, and we would have been walking up and down the training area until we found the 9mm. If we didn't find it out there, there would have been probably a post-wide inspection, everybody checking serial numbers to hunt for this 9mm. So, like I said, sergeant major to sergeant major, good thing. Nobody got their hands slapped. It's not like one sergeant major said, well, I'm going to tell your boss that you dropped your weapon. You know, we all had a good laugh about it. At least those two guys did when one handed it to the other. Now, the other story is where my double standard comes in. There was two soldiers. I don't think either one of them was a sergeant. I presume or assume that they were mechanics of some kind. Vehicle mechanics, generator mechanics. Don't know what their MOS was, don't know what they were doing, but they were out there in their truck. They were probably going from one place to another place and decided that it got dark. We don't see any lights in the distance. So we don't know where we're going, so we're going to park our vehicle and spend the night there and then wake up in the morning and proceed on our merry way to our destination. Don't know the circumstances of how the vehicle caught fire. But story came down that they were both asleep when it caught fire. One or both of them woke up when they either felt flames, felt the heat, smelled the smoke. Don't know how they woke up. Doesn't really matter. Anybody that's in a situation like that, you got that fight or flight syndrome knocking in your head. So they both got out of their vehicle and the vehicle burned up in flames. Well, the rumors came down the ranks that both of these soldiers were going to get Article 15s, were going to get deduction of pay, were going to get bad reports on them. They weren't NCOs yet, so they weren't getting the non-commissioned officer evaluation report, the NCOER, but you could still do a counseling statement because both of them, according to all ranks, had failed to retrieve their weapons. So therefore, their weapons burnt up in their vehicle. They didn't lose them, per se. They weren't lost in the desert. But it was just like I said, Sergeant Major, one handing the other one his 9mm, two soldiers sleeping in a vehicle that caught on fire, and their main criteria was to save themselves, their lives, and to remain alive. Now I see where the controversy comes in, because if this was a combat situation, yes, they probably would have grabbed their weapons. Because we all, from basic training, are drilled in that the weapon becomes your girlfriend. You sleep with her, you carry her everywhere you go. But to me, the two stories show that if you're high enough in rank and one hands the weapon to another, you're fine. But if you're lower rank, you're saving your life. I'm not going to run back inside a burning building. I'm not going to fight a fire within the vehicle. I'm not going to worry about whether my M16 is with me or not, because it was probably behind I don't know what kind of vehicle they had. And I don't know if if the vehicle had a strap or a support to put the weapon in so it wouldn't rattle around while they drove across the bumpy roads of the desert. So they would have had to release it. So that would have taken time. You don't want to, if you're fleeing from a fire, you don't want to be hanging near it. Because I'll have a fire-related story when I go to the Gulf War, when I get there. So, like I said, these two incidences have been on my mind ever since I've been talking about NTC. Like I said, I don't remember if they happened at the same rotation, different rotations. I think the sergeant major to the sergeant major handing off of the M9 pistol, I think that happened my second rotation, which was way back in '94. And then my first rotation, what I talked about last week, was back in '89, I do believe. And it was during the summer. So my first, can't really say it's my first, but just two stories that show rank matters. Rank has its privileges. Rank has its certain rights. Which is kind of depressing, because I would hate to have been either of those two soldiers. Myself, I would not want to be in a burning vehicle. But my first instinct would have been like them. Let's get out of the vehicle, assess our situation, make sure we're both okay, and get away from the fiery truck, because it was a total write-off from what I understand. It was a burnt out vehicle. So they not only lost their weapons, they probably lost all their personal gear. So for the rest of the rotation, they had what was on their backs, and that was it. So, but it's just funny that, I mean, not funny, but it's just weird that the rumors coming down weren't, you know, congratulations, you saved your life. It was, no, you left your M16s to get burnt up in a vehicle. So, Chief out. Remember, freedom is not free. Thank a vet, hug a vet, kiss a vet, whatever you want to do. Buy a vet a cup of coffee, buy him a Danish. I don't care what you do, just thank one. And this is Chief out. See you next week.